So this is a good time to discuss about so many things, especially about the idea of nutrition, idea of how caste and class and religion and ideology also affect it. But before we start the podcast, I must give a small introduction. So Dr. Sylvia is a public health physician and researcher who has spent nearly 2 decades working on the issues of nutrition, food right, and healthcare in India. Her work focuses on the intersection of public health, caste inequality, and government policy, with a special emphasis on the rights of marginalized communities. She has worked with organizations including WHO, World Health Organization, Amnesty India, the People's Health Movement, and People's Union for Civil Liberties. She has been a consistent voice in public debates around school meals, midday meals, the right to food, and evidence based nutrition. And today she joins us to just discuss why food in India is never just about nutrition, but mostly, I would say, mostly about politics, caste, ideology, and more. So, Dr. Sylvia, first of all, welcome to Anurag Minus Orma podcast. Thank you so much for giving us time.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be on the show, and I'm really looking forward to have a discussion. And I hope a lot of people participate, and it engages people uh, to be conscious about, yeah, like what you said, that food is not just food in India. It has so many dimensions to it.
Actually, there is a very famous quote on T-shirts that you see that you are what you eat.
Okay.
It's a very famous quote. But in India, it is you are what you're forced to eat. Most of the people don't eat
You are what
what they
you're
like.
forced not to eat.
Of course, not to eat also, because most of the people don't really follow what exactly they want to eat. It can also be due to your upbringing, your family, your caste, ideology, and sometimes also because of the issue around the personal economics and poverties. The people don't even have access to it. So there is
Yeah.
so much of layer around the idea of nutrition and food. And if we start with the hook, which is the recent example of denying egg in the midday meal, that too in a quote unquote non-vegetarian state like Bengal, it has created a lot of controversy. People are saying that what I mean, some of the people are saying that what is the problem in egg, like they are not even asking at least for meat or chicken, mutton, or even beef. It's just egg. And even with the egg, there is so much of controversy around it, which is also very weird, because I think many years back we had these ads, like when I was a
Yeah.
teenager, these ads, Sunday hoya Monday, rose khao one day. So it also got into my psyche that one has to eat eggs every day, and especially in India, where people say that egg has that garam tasir. It is not supposed to be eaten during the summer. Only you can eat in the winter. So there is a lot of mis information around it. But right now, it has become part of a public policy to not give eggs to the children, which is a very I. If correct me if I'm wrong, a recent transformation. So how do you look at this whole controversy of egg and midday meal?
So I don't think it's a recent controversy. I think we should have ideally intervened very early. In the sense, the idea of the midday meal itself, if you look at it, it's a very progressive approach to eating, because I think the people who made the policies and made the laws, they recognized how food and caste interact, food, caste, gender, religion. And therefore, if you look at the principles behind the midday meal itself, it said to increase the children associating with each other, dining together, learning to eat together, respecting each other's foods, bringing in culturally relevant foods, like it's food that is eaten locally, what the communities eat, you bring that into the midday meal. You employ Dalit cooks, women cooks, and you use local ingredients. So all of those were very much part of bringing in this scheme. And if it's being dismantled at every level, so it is almost like a resurgence of a more virulent form of casteism, where you're attacking people's foods on multiple fronts. So initially, people were saying, "Oh, India." The beef is a problem. People are not eating beef, so it's okay. It's a religious thing. Hindus respect the cow, so it's fine. Give it up. And then they started attacking people's eating what they call non-veg food, saying you can't have these stalls, chicken stalls, you can't have eateries in religious places, you can't have it in certain areas, segregation of food, where you're pushing the meat and you don't want to see the meat stalls and chicken stalls, you're pushing them out to the outskirts, making it more and more inaccessible. And then now you're doing it with eggs. So, if you look at it overall, there's an attack on foods eaten by marginalized communities, and it is therefore a resurgence of a very virulent form of casteism. And in the midday meal scheme itself, the school based kitchen was supposed to be how the food was delivered. So we have visited a lot of schools, and we've seen stark difference between the school based kitchens and the centralized kitchens. So first of all, even though there are some barriers, like sometimes parents protest having Dalit women as cooks, largely it is happening, and there is a bond between the children and between the cooks. When the children are studying, there's suddenly the aroma of food being cooked in the school. People start feeling hungry. You'll smell the pulao, you smell the eggs being cooked, and the children really enjoy that meal. It's hot, it's fresh. The cook, like, she might call some children and say, "Why you're not eating properly? Come on, take a second helping." Yeah, and also found that wherever there's a school-based kitchen, the teachers tend to eat there. In very sharp contrast, if you see the centralized kitchens, they again use this whole caste-based narrative that the food is hygienic. So in India, anyone who's preparing food at a large scale have to be trained on basic things. It doesn't matter if you're a centralized kitchen or if you're a school based kitchen, if you're a group of women, everyone needs training. So it's not that they hold some high moral ground in terms of hygiene, but they use that to say we are hygienic, which is very casteist if you look at it. And definitely they don't employ Dalit women cooks there. So you've broken already the first premise of the midday meal scheme. And the kitchens are like these, it's like mass production of food. So you have these large containers. They start cooking at 4 a.m. in Karnataka because they have to transport it to large distances, sometimes even 40 kilometers. And then they put it into these large containers, steel containers. In summer, the food actually starts getting stale. Actually starts smelling. And the rice is like one lump because it's manufactured in those large industrial kind of containers. The sambar is very watery, and they add these very watery vegetables. They don't add onion and garlic, which is culturally eaten. And I don't see that much of conversation about that in West Bengal, which I think they should also raise, because onions and garlic are traditionally eaten. So why is this organization imposing that also? And the bureaucrats have raised issues with the organization here in Karnataka. It's the State Food Commission, it's the joint director, it's the of midday meals, it's the Gram Panchayat and the Jilla Panchayat CEOs. Not Gram Panchayat because they haven't yet entered into the villages, but yeah, the CEOs of the Jilla Panchayats. And the organization has bypassed all of those guidelines and has been able to continue. So they have a lot of lobbying with the people in power, and they because even though they are basically a caste-based organization, they locate themselves as a religious organization. So any criticism of that is seen as a criticism of religion. So even if your arguments are scientific, even if you have evidence, the kind of pushback and resistance is that you're anti-national, you're anti-Hindu, you are targeting a Hindu organization. And then again, when they call themselves charitable, and the language that is used, like it shifts from food as a right in the midday meal scheme to food as a charity, because of which you'll hear people saying things like beggars can't be choosers. They'll say you're being given the food in the midday meal, why are you complaining? Give it in the house. Why do you expect the government and our tax to pay for your food? So the language itself changes. So on the one hand, you're also breaking the ability of these children to eat these foods in the houses, because you're not paying people enough. The people are getting poorer. Especially after COVID, people are not accessing foods. They reduce the number of meals that they're eating from 3 meals to 2 meals or even 1 meal. And then you also going into people's homes and preventing them from eating a lot of foods they are traditionally used to eating. And then you do the same thing in the school. So it's not that people are free therefore to go and eat these foods at home. And the kind of indoctrination makes children ashamed of the foods that they eat at home. They go back home and ask their parents, why do you want to add onion and garlic? Why do you want to eat animal source foods? And it's not like these children, if they don't eat eggs as children, they're going to grow up and eat eggs as adults.
Yeah.
You basically eliminated and erased a lot of foods which are extremely nutritious completely, if you look at it from a scientific point of view.
They are saying that we'll give soya chunks and all these things, that these things are also have some protein in it, and all that argument. I think you might also have seen from them.
Yeah.
But in general, this debate is also quite interesting. This centralized kitchen versus the food that is cooked within the premises. And so there are two questions. One is like, how can these organizations, which are just handful of organization and claim to be Sattvic organization, they are in the business of this whole thing, and then they also do a lot of PR around how the food is cooked and what kind of method, what kind of hygiene we use, and there are many YouTube videos that they also make around it. So one is that why is government only favoring these organizations which are so religious and caste coded? And the second argument is that like especially in the northern India, there are many people who make this argument that uh, when the food is cooked in the school premises, then the hygiene level are not that great, because there are news of rats being found in the food, lizards being found in the food, and all that thing, which is a very regular thing, especially in Bihar, in UP, Rajasthan. So there, these news was also there. So then some people say that if you put an organization which is centralized, then this issue can be resolved. So these are two questions. How do you look at these aspects?
Like I said, the any food preparation needs training. It needs training not just in hygiene, but how hygienic preparation, in terms of storage, in terms of the nutritional content. How do you prepare the food? Like if you're overboiling the food, what happens? If you keep it open, what happens? If you keep it for a long time, and then serve the children, what happens? If you don't add oil, what happens? So there is a need for orientation in terms of food and cooking. There is a need for a structured program. And having said that, Akshay Patra needs training definitely on basics of nutrition. They completely have ideology as their basis. They talk about sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, which is no scientific basis. It going by their idea of what is healthy and unhealthy food. They, except for milk, they've eliminated all the other animal source foods. So clearly they are unfit, and it's not like they do not know basics of nutrition. Is they don't want to know, they choose not to know. So going by that, I think they are far more in need of training. They are much more dangerous. At least a self-help group in the school can be trained. They can be regulated. If someone is not following practices, you can suspend them. what can you do? Can you suspend Akshay Patra for this, large scale indoctrination that they're doing? And there have been incidents even with Akshay Patra. There's been incidents of blatant corruption. In fact, their entire board resigned because of, the diversion of funds, diversion of grains. They've been exporting the rice meant for the midday meal scheme. They've been monetizing it. They've been saying they're a charity, and this unaccountable funds which they have been receiving. They're violating the basic MDM guidelines because in Karnataka it says you have to use onion and garlic, and they're
Okay.
not. They're refusing to use it. So they are basically a contractor who's violating a lot of guidelines. So why are we keep bringing in women and self-help groups and saying, they are so that again reinforces this very casteist idea that Dalit women intrinsically cannot be hygienic.
Mm.
You give it to them, it's going to be unhygienic. You give it to Akshay Patra, it doesn't matter what the data says. Children are not eating Akshay Patra food, there's wastage. We have documented that. They just throw the food. In summer, especially, you can smell that it's spoiled. So then, it's your ideology that's making you judge between the school-based kitchen and these organizations. And the fact that they're refusing to use onion and garlic further makes the food less tasty.
Yes,
And
yes.
these are children. Whether they're in government schools or poor or Dalit or children of people who are working as laborers or whatever, children will not eat if the food is not tasty. They will eat just as much as to fill their hunger, and then they don't eat. So they're neither getting the prescribed quantities, nor are they getting the prescribed quality. And school-based kitchens have a lot of flaws. That's not that they are perfect model, but to pitch decentralized and school-based based on hygiene, I think that is completely casteist
Mm.
and ignore the more serious issues. At least the hygiene part can be addressed. But can you address the ideological part?
But these
Imagine if
days,
a bunch of school-based, the women who are cooking in school said, no, we will not do this. We will not use onion because I don't like onion. You will just suspend them immediately.
exactly. But these organizations are so powerful that they can have free pass to do whatever they want and
Yeah,
even
and they
change the
lobby
cultural
with
habit.
the big shots. Like in Karnataka, there was so much opposition. Even the bureaucrats did not want the organization, so they bypassed all those bureaucratic mechanisms, and they went to the chief secretary, principal secretary, who then asked for assessment by the National Institute of Nutrition and CFTRI Mysore. CFTRI said we don't have the resources to comment. National Institute of Nutrition, which is a national body, said the Akshay Patra food has a lot of diversity. The taste is good. The nutritional content is good. You don't need onion and garlic. And they never even came to Karnataka. They looked at a paper menu of Akshay Patra and they said it's very good. It exceeds expectations. And then we later found out that the PR person of Akshay Patra is on the of NIN is on the board of Akshay Patra. So even the bodies that are supposed to regulate, the bodies that are supposed to provide oversight, they are also they're bought into this whole caste and corporate nexus. They're active participants, they're enablers.
But these days, I think they do provide in Karnataka school eggs, right?
So in Karnataka, the government is not providing, the government is not paying for it. It's
Okay.
being funded by a private entity, which is again concerning. Why is the government not able to pay for eggs? And what we're seeing in Akshay Patra schools is they refuse to still give eggs. So the government is trying to bring in a parallel system where they ask the school development and management committee to provide the eggs, and they have subcontracted it to the headmasters who again are unhappy about it. So the scheme has not been implemented properly in Akshay Patra schools. In the other schools, in the school based kitchen, you already have kitchens, so it's easier to just add an egg. But with Akshay Patra, you need to set up a parallel structure. You need to invest to set up another system to meet the ideological needs of this organization. And now Karnataka is in a kind of a catch 22 situation where they completely dependent on this organization. Tomorrow, if there's a major issue, and as there have been earlier, the government has dismantled the school based kitchen. You don't even have an alternative.
Okay, so they are totally dependent on
Yeah.
the deliveries from these places. But in general, like if we also expand it a little bit, what is the issue with eggs? Like seems some sort of war against egg in many parts of India. Like for example, there are India is also very unique because there is the idea of vegetarians, then there are pure vegetarians, then there are non-vegetarians, quote unquote, then there are eggetarians. So like with some
Mhm.
people they can go as far as eating the egg. So that is also a category in India, eggetarian, which is also very unique because if you go to the other countries, then egg is all considered as vegetarian diet. So uh, like to start from that first question, like was it always like that or has it changed after 2014, or is it a recent change that we have demonized egg so much? Because just to give you one more example, especially from this northern belt, like there are many kathawachaks these days whom I call the most popular influencers, like these babas, kathawachaks, religious kathawachaks. So they on stage always talk about eggs. They say that egg is shit of an animal and you shouldn't eat, you should be ashamed to eat eggs. So they speak so much about eggs. So that also creates a public perception because so many people follow these kathawachaks and babas. So that is one aspect of it. Then you combine it with this nutrition policy and so many kind of misinformation that we have reached at this place. So was it always like that or something has changed in the recent year?
In I mean, if you look at the research on nutrition, some years ago, the research has always said that eggs are good. Especially research from National Institute of Nutrition, it has done such groundbreaking research where they've established in so many ways that, for instance, that soya is cannot be compared with even skimmed milk. Although whole milk is better than skimmed milk for children, older children, it is still skim milk is still better than soya in terms of heights and weights of the children. And they've also said that you need to have animal source foods. They've compared with how children grow in terms of their heights and in terms of their weights. So there is a lot of research. There's also the actual eating practices of a lot of communities where if you ask a grandmother, she'll say yes, the children should drink milk, they should eat eggs, they should eat dry fish, they should eat organ meats, they should eat red meats. It gives them energy, takat, it gives them, strength. So the knowledge is always been there in India, and it is the people who interpret this research who are sitting in the middle. You have the doctors, you have the researchers, you have the media and faculty, bureaucrats who are all from a dominant oppressor caste, elite class group, a very small minority, and they actually have misinterpreted the research. So the research doesn't say that these foods are bad. It's how these people have interpreted them, and they have made policies. For instance, they'll say if you have anemia, eat spinach, which
Yeah.
is not. It doesn't make sense because the science says that eat liver, eat red meats. That is the best source of the heme iron, which is best absorbed, and it gives you also other the nutrients other than iron, which is required to make hemoglobin. But what I think, there was also some commitment to social justice earlier. And therefore, even though individuals and groups and communities were always, you know, uh, discriminating against meat eaters, and not just discriminating and criminalizing the foods, but also the people eating those foods. So caste has always been there in different forms, but I think policies were also a little progressive. So, the schemes and the laws, like the National Food Security Act, the what it says as a right, it converts, it says it is a legal right. So all of those were there, but I think of late it's coming into the policies, and that is concerning. And they have a whole bunch of people defending bad policies. So they basically created a whole cadre, which is, you know saying these policies are fine, and they bring in like bizarre arguments. Like now, the Akshapatra spokesperson said soya has more protein,
Yeah.
and you will see a whole bunch of nutritionists who are also saying the same thing. So they don't disclose if they have conflict of interest, if they are paid, or who's instigating them. We also have a whole multinational corporate lobby from the West, a global lobby, which is talking about plant-based foods. In fact, they are like, the Eat Lancet Commission has come to India. They're collaborating with the Food Safety, which is a government body, a Food Safety Standards Authority of India, saying India is a good model. They're saying target adolescents, which is essentially a midday meal. And if you see, over time, the children are basically having like almost a vegan diet, a cheap vegan diet. And soya is being promoted constantly as having high protein. It does have a lot of protein, but a lot of legumes, which they do have a lot of phytates and lectins and tannins and oxalates, which prevent absorption. So, and they're also very heavy to digest. And whatever is available in those are not easily absorbed by the body. The only way you can improve the nutritional value of those is by soaking, sprouting, fermenting, malting, which they are not doing. In fact, soya chunks are the byproduct of extraction of soya oil. And it undergoes a lot of processes. It is high temperatures, there's high, extraction methods. They use chemicals. So you're giving the byproduct to children, and it's an ultra processed food finally. We're not taking soya and then giving it to the child, because it's impossible to eat soya without all these processes. So
And
the eggs are considered as the reference. They're gold standard. They have all the essential amino acids. They're very easy to digest, and they absorbed also. A lot of what you eat is absorbed. Unlike soya, where you can eat it, but it's not absorbed. And for children, if you give foods that are not digested, not absorbed,
mm,
they're going to eat a little soya and they're going to feel full. And they're going to eat less quantities of food. So you don't want children to eat foods that are heavy and they can't digest. You want them, even though they eat less, it has to be extremely nutritious. And soya cannot meet that need. And this is, I think, it's there. If they do a bit of a research, if they want to have a scientific approach to food, it's very much there.
mm.
It's basically, it's anti-science.
So this lack of nutrition, which is happening these days among in children's, and not just on the institution level, even in the family level, people are turning into this pure veg and everything. Uh, so what kind of future it is going to bring for our children in terms of health and nutrition, and obviously that will also be the future of the country. So what kind of future are we heading in terms of health, physicality, nutrition?
See, the very cunning approach to this is to call milk and dairy as pure veg. I think it's very important to challenge that, because once you start looking at food as plant based and animal based, or plant source and animal source, then milk becomes animal source. Ghee is nothing but animal fat.
Yeah.
And the people who access dairy and milk are people who are from the elite class and caste groups. And what animal source foods available to the marginalized communities are these other foods: the chicken, the fish, the the beef, the mutton, the eggs. And by calling all of them as tamasic and rajasic and saying that only milk is sattvic, what you're saying is, and saying they're pure, you're basically ensuring that you get your nutrition. And like a lot of ISKCON supporters say, "Oh, I've eaten at the ISKCON temple, and its food is so amazing." The food they make for the donors and the food that they give for children is two extreme opposites. And the vegetarianism that is being pushed on the poor is completely cheap. It's devoid of nutrition. It's only cereals. It's only millets. You're not giving. And so if there are 6 food groups, we should have at least 4 of those in each meal. But what you're doing is you're just picking out like 1 or 2, which is the cheapest. It's cheapest to give people cereals and millets, and you're giving them only that. And these have like intergenerational effects. So as children who are stunted and who have underweight, they're more likely to have gastrointestinal infections, respiratory infections. They're more likely to fall sick. So in a year, if you see how often a child is falling sick, a child with these kind of poor diets who's malnourished is falling sick more often, and therefore they are missing school. Their concentration in the school is less, and it's very easy to label these children as stupid and to reinforce all the old caste based prejudices. And as adolescents they have problems. If a girl gets married and she has children, she's going to have adverse pregnancy outcomes. The risk of dying and the risk of having complications is much more if her height is less, if she's anemic. And then as adults, they go on to have more of non communicable diseases: diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease. So you're basically making people sick from childhood. It's a very deliberate thing. And the most of the researchers, they'll say, oh, people don't have knowledge. Most of civil society will say, oh, we should train people how to eat healthy. That the mothers are dying because of their own fault. The children are dying because of the mothers. The mothers don't care. The mothers are ignorant. But that's not true. The people know what they're supposed to eat. Why are you not letting them eat foods that they know is healthy? Why are you going and taking foods, healthy foods off people's plates? Like, which country lynches people for eating nutritious foods? It's happening in India, and so normalized. And people say that, they say, of course, he will be lynched if he
Yeah.
eats foods that we don't like. What is that level of intolerance? And it's almost like normalized. It's that if you say that it's abnormal, then they say you're anti-national.
I think just have two more questions. Speaking about this whole idea of one should eat healthy, but the problem in India begins with the notion that the people don't even know what is healthy, because
Yeah.
what they think is healthy is unhealthy. So, for example, let's say people think that this homemade breakfast of paratha is healthy and it's good. It's a good meal, nutritious meal, paratha with ghee, or let's say poha, or these things, which are may contain a few things here and there, but can't be classified as a healthy breakfast or healthy food. So people have, like you said, that idea of these are pure food, these are impure food, and then they make their philosophy around that. Like, these pure food are healthy. If you eat this and this, then these are healthy. So there is so much of misconception around the whole idea of what is healthy and what is not healthy. And like we briefly talked about it offline, that these days there are many influencers online who just speak nonsense in the name of what is healthy. And especially there are many influencers who take a reference from Ayurveda. Like Ayurveda say you do this at 9 p.m., Ayurveda say you do this at 5 p.m., you eat this kind of meal on this day and all that thing, which we know that are not scientific and are totally pseudoscience. So in that in atmosphere where this whole idea that what is healthy is itself debatable, and people don't even have the basic knowledge of what is healthy and what is unhealthy, and that has been exacerbated by the whole this misinformation by the influencer. So this mix, this heady cocktail of many layers of misinformation are happening in India at the moment. So how do you look at this current times from these layering?
I mean, there are some very interesting lessons from Karnataka. The people who brought in Akshay Patra and the people who were not giving eggs is not BJP, because a lot of people tend to associate BJP with this whole communalized and casteist behavior. But it was a Congress which brought in Akshay Patra the first time in Karnataka, and they also refused to give eggs. And when we asked the officials, they said it's because of religious reasons. So, and over time, there's been a shift in in people's demands, in people's understanding of nutrition. And we've had multiple memorandums. We've had school children demanding eggs. We've had the cultural artists. We've had theater people. We have people who are influencers that way, from not on social media, but who are like cultural leaders, who have all asked for eggs. And so much. And we had a very good, like, principal secretary who or commissioner, sorry, a commissioner, education commissioner, who did basic research. So he kind of showed that eggs are very much culturally appropriate, that people have no objection to eat eggs in a large majority. And they also showed that giving eggs in one district and not giving eggs has showed significant benefit on the children. And in Karnataka, it was a BJP which brought in eggs, and it later Karnataka Congress continued it. So I think West Bengal, they have. I mean, first of all, the question of why they elected them and now protesting, because this is inevitable. If you bring in BJP, then they'll bring in certain changes. It comes as part of the party. But there has been pushback, and I think that is important. That people are informed, people challenge it, and Akshay Batra has had to come forward and defend their choices of food. I think all of those are positive things, and I think West Bengal stands in a good place because people are able to articulate and make demands. I think they should continue that. And that's the only way to bring about this whole change in the system and the structure. And yeah, as far as the influencers are concerned, I think the only way to challenge them is with science, and keep on putting a counter narrative, challenging this, which is it's difficult because it's like an onslaught. But I think, like, whatever you're doing, the shows you're doing, and the fact that people are listening to you and engaging with it, thinking about it, I think those are all very important.
Even I had so much of misinformation around the whole idea of nutrition, which I think in only in the recent time, due to by watching many videos, by reading, and there are some very good influencers as well who also break the
Yeah.
myths around nutrition. So I think I also learned it over the year, and I would be very happy if, even since from the early ages, we had taught this whole
Yeah.
idea of what is nutrition and how it is important and all the myths around it. So, if there was some kind of a public policy around at least understanding the basic of nutrition, so that would have helped my generation a lot. So,
Yeah.
but do you think that possibility is there in the future? Like, are we moving towards some kind of little bit optimistic future, or situation is not so bright?
So I was in Kerala, and Kerala is very grounded in terms of their food. And there's a lot of pride. There is also a lot of understanding. It was very positive experience. I think in Karnataka there's been a shift from the government refusing to give eggs for religious reasons to giving eggs 6 days a week, and very little resistance, in terms of the people were threatening that we'll pull out our children from schools and we will come march in large numbers, and those large numbers actually never happened. So that is very amazing. And the pushback from West Bengal to this Akshay Patra has been incredible. And it's not only people from West Bengal. I think across the country, I've seen people who are being informed, who are being very vocal and challenging the organization, challenging whatever they're saying. I think that's a very positive thing that we're seeing. And it's not only that they're challenging it as an organization, they're challenging the idea of such foods, and state governments buying into it and promoting these kind of unscientific foods. People are able to make the association between these foods and caste, with these foods and undernutrition. So all of those I think are very important.
Even I had a lot of respect of eggs after that controversy. Earlier, I was just casually, taking egg, but now I look at it from lots of respect. So yeah, that is a change. But thank you so much, Dr. Sylvia, for coming to the podcast and explaining your ideas so well. Thank you. I learned a lot from it, and my audience is also going to learn a lot from it. And looking forward to your book. If you can also talk a little bit about that, if you want to, then that's also fine. Upcoming book that you're writing.
Yeah, so the book, I mean, basically, all my conversations started on social media, but there's only so much that you can put out on social media. So the book is almost like it has a lot of the, I mean, scientific aspects of nutrition, but also very specifically in the Indian context, the politics, the social dimension. There's also the economics of it. There's also the whole Western influence, the corporate agenda. So it has touched upon all of those. And I feel it's very timely. And I feel if, uh, people read the book, then at least we have tools to counter this narrative. And I see it as that. And yeah, it should be out around August, September, as
Super.
far as I know. And
Hope
yeah,
to have a
hopefully it will be
conversation with you.
useful. Yeah.
Yeah. Hope to have a conversation with you when it's out.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
should. And
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
thank you for inviting me onto this show, and being able you offering a space. I think that's very critical, and I really appreciate you for offering that
Thank
space.
you. Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. And so this was today's episode. If you like it, then please become a member of this podcast, because we survive because of membership. So if you want us to bring more such detailed, insightful conversations, then please do become a member of this podcast and support us. Thank you so much for watching or listening this episode. Thank you.